Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday night, so here we are. We're the older people.
Yep.
On the other Thursday night. I'm Elise Gianmarco Carlson. This is Carl L. Johnson, in case you didn't know.
Oh.
You might be that one person watching this show that didn't know who he is.
Well, you'll have me to blushing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I stayed up for this. I'm glad I did. I hope you all
your
did too.
bedtimes get earlier as life goes on.
I get to bed so late it pretty much is early. Oh, that's not dawn yet, is it? Yes. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our show, Panoramic Perspectives. And just as the name implies, it's a broad scope of subjects we broach. And tonight is no exception. So what do we got coming up for us? I know we have, as yet to be announced, date at the North Providence Union Free Library. That's probably going to, I'm sure it's going to be sometime in April. And then on May the 13th and 14th, we will have Paracon, double N, and
in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Hence the name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Before that will be at the Jesse Smith Library. Oh, there we go. Paracon 3.
Yeah.
May
Yes.
13th and 14th, the Ansonia, Connecticut Armory.
Yeah, the actual armory there.
That's cool.
It's like a castle. I've seen it.
That's cool. We have a lot of armories in Rhode Island that I've been to, and they're pretty cool buildings.
Yeah, they really are. They're fortresses.
Before that same week on May 10th, we're going to be at the Jesse Smith Library in Harrisville, not too far from the famous house and the Assembly Theater right there in the middle of town. It's a great library. It's a great bunch of people there. So we're going to be doing a talk about, do we have a title for our talk?
Yeah, I forget what it is. I gave it to her.
Okay.
I sent it to them.
Well, we usually talk about
the
the same things. So.
We won't run out of anything.
My perspective, your perspective, and we meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, well, that's when we figured an hour just isn't enough. We need 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Yeah.
But then come September, and there are things going on in between. September, it's going to be the 9th and 10th. That will be in Harrisville at the Assembly Theater. It's going back to its original site. Well, originally it was the St. Anne's Arts and Cultural Center, but now it's going back to Harrisville, where things all began. And it's going to be Ocean State Paracon. Directed, produced, organized by Ken DaCosta.
We know him.
Vital. Oh, yeah. He's vital to us. Yeah. I'm so looking forward to going back there. I know it's a hot setting, but maybe not so much by that time of year. And you can always go inside the Assembly Theater and get too cold. And, I've been here 10 minutes. I got to go outside again.
I just like Harrisville as an historian. They have a wonderful historical society up there in Butterville and
Excellent.
A lot of old buildings. And if you ever get to see the story of Austin Levy, that basically built everything in town. What a nice guy. We always say, boy, why can't millionaires, help out the town with their money? This guy did.
Yes, I heard that on continual play at Old Slater Mill, where I was. They had,
really?
The story, that video that was made about Austin Levy and the history of industry in Harrisville. I heard that on continual play 4 to 5 days a week for 4 years. No, it was actually 5 years they had it. So you think I'd remember every detail about it. I tried to put it out of my head, but that's right where that happened.
All right. So that's going to be a good time in September. And like you said, I'm sure there's going to be a few things in between we don't even know about yet. So what have we been up to?
What have we been up to? We have been actively investigating a few sites, but active means mostly on the computer, consulting with people, talking to people, and having them ask us questions. But you have
one live one.
You can't disclose everything. One live one.
No, we've got one live one.
Yeah.
That we've been out.
Of course, if we're working on it, we really can't say too much about it.
Very interesting. That's all I can say.
It's unusual, even as these things go. I will say, and Elise is heading that actually, because she gets up a lot earlier than do I. Or less. I wake up at the same time but you're cognizant more that you can drive a car when you wake up.
Yes.
I wouldn't trust myself.
That's about it.
Yeah.
A lot of history stuff going on here at the Johnston Historical Society, where we hold our show. And
the headquarters. I always mention that when I'm on a show, that these cabinets actually hold archives, documents, deeds, property titles from the 1750s and 60s. So
that's enough about us, I think.
This is our paranormal file room.
No, it's
here.
not.
Yeah.
We've got that one drawer over there.
You want to get to our guest?
I want to get to our guest.
You want to introduce him this time?
I was just going to say, I'm going to allow you to introduce our guest this week because it's somebody who you're very much more familiar with than I am.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to asking him some questions and learning from him.
Yeah, you got more notes than I have.
Mine are all questions. You know him.
I know him. I can answer. No, I can't really answer his questions for him. But this is somebody. Now, we really can't get into the story of Dan Rivera without touching on the Warrens. It's like trying to jump off a carousel. You really always back onto it. But there's reason for that, because he was closely associated with Ed and Lorraine Warren. I should emphasize Mrs. Lorraine Warren, the elegant Lorraine Warren, was a very close personal friend of Dan Rivera's. In fact, they were like family without being blood related. They were very. You feel? Well, you know, Lorraine. So nice. Boy, was she stylish, Miss so nice. Lorraine. Who was also a personal friend of I. But in her later years, Dan was more familiar with her, in contact with her, and he's going to tell us how he first became involved with the Warrens and what drew him to paranormal investigating initially, before he even was associated. If there was a time he wasn't associated with the Warrens, because it seems like it had been for so long. Let's see if we can bring our gentleman in. Dan, are you there? Hello.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
What's your favorite paranormal or like horror movie, scary movie?
I would say.
No, think about it. Get back to me.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many out there. Yeah. Oh God, that film is still effective.
Why is he asking?
Well, anyways, this movie here. I mean, I remember watching it. I think it was on like ABC back in the 70s, and I was probably around 7 years old when I watched it, and it was probably the biggest mistake because it terrified me. And after watching that movie, I slept with the lights on. You know, I wouldn't go up to the third level of my parents' house by myself. And look what I'm doing now.
It got to me when I was 17 years old. It was like heebie-jeebies. Like, no, it didn't terrify me, but at night it was like, I don't want to see anything that was in that movie. It really was. So it was very effective. But you were like 7.
Yep.
Which makes me like.
And plus, pretty much when they were talking about when they made this movie, I mean, they were basing it off of the Lindley Street haunting in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And that was probably maybe about 5 miles from where I lived.
You had reason to be fearful. Yeah. I mean, I can understand why you were, let's say that. So now this fascination with things spooky, scary, even devilish at times, did that start you on the road to paranormal investigating, or I just don't know exactly how you started?
Well, like growing up in Bridgeport, lived in a 4-family house, and I had an aunt that was dabbling in Santeria. I told you that's the story, and her altar was underneath my bedroom. We lived on the second apartment above her, and I will feel like the ill effects of her practices, being pushed out of bed, pushed into the wall. Mm-hmm. Seeing this woman, and I'm not the only one that seen this apparition of this demon. There was a white lady. Tentacles were coming out of her cheeks. Long white hair, pale skin, and when she opened her mouth, it was like looking into a mouth of a shark. It was just all these teeth, shark teeth, and this is what we lived with. I mean. It wasn't a house that, per se, there were ghosts in the house. It was more of a demonic presence on what she was dabbling in.
Okay, now our conversation gets serious. My second residential case was actually demonic possession, full-fledged demonic possession, and there was a Santerian influence. And I'm not condemning Santeria as a belief or practice. I mean, people have to be. It's a cultural thing, It's something not
right.
However, the person who was directing what we were going to do about this case of possession was the subject's godmother, and she was fully Santerian from the island. So she and I had many interesting conversations. I was actually living in Puerto Rico for 4 months researching Santeria, and most of it was saying, I wish I had more food, and I'm very thirsty all the time. But and I didn't get to the beach and all those neat. I was on a sailboat once, but I was really there researching Santeria, and some of that was absolutely enthralling, fascinating,
right.
Some scary to actually see these things in action. Because when you're in a culture and a land that actually embraces these beliefs, things become startlingly real.
And you witnessed a girl that was possessed down there, and my relatives and my ancestors dabbled in this too. I mean, different forms of it. And my grandmother's sister, her name was Blanca, and we had she dabbled in trying to. I mean, her practice was okay. She would help somebody in the village. They would come to her if they were possessed, and she would call the demon into her body to fight it.
That's exactly the procedure I witnessed.
Right. So
that was their job. That's what, like a physician, the Brihha. That's how they would help. Did I tell you the story about the girl who was possessed when I was in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, you told me that. I can't forget it.
I was going to say, unless that was something you absorbed.
No. Other than that, living in that house, growing up with that, and I started my own paranormal group in my early 20s, and I started falling on cases that the Warrens actually worked on, homes that had exorcisms performed in there, different families that were living in the house, but come to find out, when I checked the history of the past family that lived there, they called the Warrens in. And I never put two and two together at that time, but after time, I went to one of their lectures, and Lorraine was outside, and she saw me, and I was just standing up against the building, and she asked if I could help bring the books in. And that was day one. I brought the books in there. She was asking questions about myself, and told her my history, and from there on, man, we became friends, and I started investigating with them, became their senior lead investigator, working with Tony Spira.
Yes.
And I was there till the day before she had passed away. And she was a really, really good friend, and truly miss her. And just like to continue doing that work. A lot of people don't see what we do or what entails what I do. A lot of it's private. I work with more of the clients, trying to get them resolution and help. So it's not really about going in there and capturing evidence of hauntings or what they're, I used to be into the EVPs and capturing images on camera. That's beyond me now, I believe. My interest is more helping the family and helping them understand what they're going through, and believe in them. So I leave it to the other team members to do the investigation parts, and I go in there and just try to figure out what's really going on.
Good for you. By the way, I glanced at my notes, something I wanted to mention about when I did that time in Puerto Rico. My favorite singer was Danny Rivera.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I posted a video one time and
from you, but Danny Rivera used to sing with Edie Gourmet. I'm dating myself. Somebody has to. Yeah. So anyway, what you're doing, it sounds altruistic, not just scientific, and not just probing. I mean, I think you've gotten a lot of answers, however many answers we can obtain in this field. And now you're concentrating more on actually helping the people, because on the other side, we have persons who are sometimes in distress, or at least they want answers.
That was going to be my question. Do you find that a lot of these people have either mental, family problems, a lot of stressful problems, something that would cause them to, a mental health professional might look at them and say, you've got problems, you're keeping all the stress inside.
Right.
Maybe causing.
Well, that's the same way I approach it. I go deep into their past, and if they dealt with anything in their past with abuse, alcohol, child abuse, all that, plays into it. And sometimes they don't realize that because they're holding all these emotions inside.
Right.
And they never told anybody what they went through.
Yeah.
So it's like, holding these, if somebody was being abused, sexually abused, beat on, and lived through it and never told anybody about it.
Yeah,
what was driving that force of that person to abuse that child? Was it something demonic?
Right.
Just saying. So what they're experiencing now is somewhat related to what they went through as a child. Right. But they never put two and two together.
Yeah.
and it's mentally and physically affecting their lives.
Right. So now that you've got some other kind of entity, whether it's something created by that person from their stress, from their energy, or it's something from the outside coming at them, there is some sort of a problem there besides themselves.
Right, because they never healed.
Right.
And they go through life and they're having all these problems because they have trust issues and they're very negative people. So now they're open for attack.
Right.
So you try to heal them, you try to get them, the proper help that they need and help them understand where this is coming from. And that begins the healing stage. Sometimes, we can't understand where it's coming from. For instance, I went on a case, Carl, with your brother, Keith.
Yes.
The girl, Jocelyn, and
she had a birthday 2 weeks ago.
What's that?
Her birthday was 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, 15-year-old girl, but she has a mentality of a 5-year-old, and she will become under possession, and it was she created a name for it. And she said it was a China. She was from China, and this girl, she would describe her surroundings and rivers, and how would she know that?
Yeah.
And I was sitting there at the table, we were eating dinner, and Keith, your brother, was asking questions to Jocelyn, and all of a sudden, Jocelyn her face just became blank, and she looked at him. And she says, "You're not talking to Jocelyn." And from there, things changed. She got up and, well, first of all, I had a stone of the Sacred Heart, and I had it blessed by a priest before I went up there, and I put it on the table in front of her, and I told her to grab it. And she got up and she started pacing around the room. And her stepfather came from the second level downstairs, and she went to go at him. So I took that stone and put it in his hand for his protection. And she swayed away from him and she went on the sofa. And she was just given this nasty look. And all of a sudden, as I stood in front of her, her eyes just cleared. And I said, "Jocelyn, is that you?" And she said, "Yes, it's me." And I said, "Where is it?" "It's behind my father." And so I went that towards behind her father, and I started, saying the prayers and casting this demon out of there. And she saw me doing that, and she asked me for holy water. So she came up to me. I put holy water in her hands, and then I said, I blessed her, and then she blessed herself, and then she blessed the stuffed animal that she had also. And she says, she said she wanted to help me cast this demon out. So she will follow me from room to room, repeating what I was saying, taking the holy water and sprinkling it everywhere. So before that, I had a conversation with her to get onto her level where she could understand that she's very strong and she could fight this. I made her feel like she was Iron Man. And you know how Iron Man has that the light coming from his chest?
Yes, he has that chest plate that glows.
When I told her, I gave her my rosaries and I put it around her neck. And I said, "This is your strength. This is your light. Wow. This is how you could defeat it." And I told her, "You're just like Iron Man. You're a superhero. You could fight this." And that empowered her. That gave her confidence that she's stronger and she's like a superhero. So I don't know from what happened after that, because like I said, this was Keith's case, and I know he videotaped the whole session the night that we were there. And I thought it was beautiful. It wasn't that it was a scary moment, it was a beautiful moment. And I appreciate that your brother reached out to me that I could go over there and help this child.
When you're active in such a case, this one in particular, do you try to separate the somatic, the medical and psychiatric from the demonic, the spiritual? Yes. I assume you're always aware of that and trying to analyze.
Right. And I'm pretty good at reading people, and I do have a gift where sometimes I could freak people out and tell them things about their past, and it kind of helps. But I don't call myself a psychic or anything. I know I have a gift, and I use it when it comes to me. And when I'm put in those situations, it usually does come to me, and I'm able to connect with the family or the person I'm dealing with.
It sounds like you're a valuable personnel. It's a good thing you were there. And later on in the interview, I'll ask you more about Lorraine Warren. I consider your relationship with Lorraine something of a, don't misunderstand, but it was a love story, because you were very close to her, and in her last years and her last day, you were close to Lorraine.
Right.
So I'll certainly ask you about that, but I think Elise has a couple of more things you wanted to bring up.
Actually, I mean, this is a show about asking people who are watching what they'd like to ask you. So I have a couple of questions here. One from Denise. Did your aunt continue to practice in the house after you and your family were being disrupted?
She did, until the day she had passed away. Um, you know, her death was kind of strange. How she died. It seemed like she was thrown down the stairs, and they found her body at the bottom of the stairs, all discontorted. And I'm thinking it was the demon that she called her guide, that destroyed her. And come to find out, in her garage, she had a cauldron that had curses in them, in it. And then my cousin had to do the reverse, whatever they do, the reverse spells, to get rid of the cauldron. So yeah, she dabbled it. She never stopped. As a child, I think she was brought into a church, for help, and she would be crawling underneath the church pews.
Yeah.
And they would try to hold her down, and she was like maybe 15 years old at that time, and 4 or 5 guys would try to hold her down, and she actually lifted one gentleman up from his shirt into the air.
Wow.
With the strength that came from nowhere. And she never went back to church after that.
How much were you aware of this at the time these things were transpiring?
A lot of it came after what we really found out was after we moved out of there. And my parents never really told us about it. Years later, my aunts would talk to me and said what they were all dabbling in. And my aunt knew I had a gift, so she would test me, and I was like, I didn't want to be around her. She had 3 beautiful sons, which, they lived with us, and it was tough for them. They loved their mother. I mean, I'm not going to say, I didn't love her. I did love her too. But I didn't, go with what she practiced in. I mean, one time I was at their house. I was sleeping over there, and her son, we're on the 2nd level. Her son was in the middle of the hallway, staring down to the bottom level, and he was just frozen there. And I'm wondering, why is Jerry frozen there? I peeked around the hallway and looked down the stairs, and I saw this black shadow at the bottom of the stairs. And because he made eye contact with it, and he was just frozen there. So I backed out of there, and I ran towards him and pushed him into the other room. I don't know, if I was trying to be a superhero or what, but I didn't like what I was seeing. So that scared me. And I also, witnessed when she was arguing with her husband, how the bed levitated, spun, and hit him. So I saw quite a few things.
I guess so. Right in your own house.
Well, as Liam Neeson said in the movie Batman Begins with Christian Bale, and I always have to get a movie quote in, he portrayed Ra's al Ghul. I remember one thing from that movie that he said when he's training young Bruce Wayne, he says, the will to act, find the will to act.
And sometimes it takes over you. It's not fear. And it's something that comes out of me that truly wants to help someone, and I don't know what it is, but it just comes out of me, and I know what to say. I know what to do. Um, I know there's always been a connection since I was a child. I mean, even like a connection to the Warrens. There was a gentleman back in 1980 that went inside that museum, and he started knocking on the Annabelle's case, and was mocking Annabelle. If if you're this demon inside of Annabelle, come and attack me. Ed saw that and told that guy, "You need to leave the museum."
Right.
So he got on his motorcycle with his girlfriend, and they took off. They went down Route 25, headed down Route 8. Now that day, I was 8 years old. I went to work with my father. He delivered pastries to local diners and country clubs, and his last stop was the Monroe Diner. We were driving down Route 25. We were at the light. As soon as we get onto the connector, this motorcycle and with this girl on the back went flying by us. My father looked at me and says, "Dan, they're going to get into an accident." So as we continued down Route 8 to the Route 25 connector to Route 8, we saw the motorcycle tossed into the wood line on the side of the road there. We saw the girl sitting there holding her head, and blood's covered her face, and she's just kneeling down there. We didn't know where the gentleman was. He was tossed into the wood line with the motorcycle. Now, I was 8 years old. This was back in 1980. I witnessed that accident because that guy mocked Annabelle. And now I'm working with the Warrens. I handle all the objects in that museum, plus Annabelle.
Yeah.
And what are the coincidences?
You have a picture of that?
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. How do you handle Annabelle? Do you just do it perfunctorily like a janitor? I don't think so.
No, because working with Tony and Lorraine, they told me how to I protect myself, what I need to do. And usually before I hand to her, I go to the church and I have a blessing performed on myself. Then the process of moving her, we say our prayers and our binding rituals. Then I drench my hands in holy water, and then I put on gloves that were specially made to handle her. On each finger of the glove has a Saint Benedict medal and a Saint Michael medal in every other finger. And then I have the Lord's crucifix on each hand. And with that, that's how I move her. But I don't spend a lot of time holding her. I just, what I need to do. But that was passed on from Ed.
I've always got a question about that. I mean, I have no idea. Why wouldn't somebody just throw that doll in a big hole at the landfill?
Because whatever's inhabiting that doll, you could burn the doll, you could toss it away, but it's just a vessel. So whatever is attached to that, it will move on to something else. It affects people. I mean, I need to be careful when I'm dealing with that doll. There's times where, it affected me. I mean, I've lost multiple vehicles because of this doll. Being involved in a 3-car.
Yeah,
What's that?
Vehicle.
And I know you like vehicles because as I was to download to the show.
Yeah, that's Warren.
That one's fantastic.
That's Warren. That's actually the name of your vehicle. And Lorraine.
Lorraine. Yep. That was my tribute card to Lorraine, and I also have Lorraine's picture in that car. It's a brooch that I actually put on the dash. And it's just, like I said, it's just a tribute. I mean, it's like she was close to me.
So if it could affect somebody, get loose, I guess would be the way to describe it. After being tossed in a landfill, why doesn't it bother people who go in the museum?
Because the case I built, also Ed had Annabelle on the case as well. So that case was, when Annabelle was placed in there, it was a binding ritual that was placed as well with it to keep it from harming anybody. originally when they got it, Annabelle was sitting on the rocking chair in the museum, and priests would come in there to bless the museum, and then he would challenge the doll and said, like he was the one that was going to cast this demon out of this doll, and picked up the doll and tossed it across the room. Ed said, "Father, you shouldn't have done that." And the priest said, "Ed, I had to do what I had to do." Ed says, "No, Father, you're not stronger than the demon. Only God is stronger." So by that happening, and when that priest left that museum, he had bought a new car, and he got into an accident on Route 84, heading back towards Hartford, and totaled the car.
That route 84 heading to Hartford, and yeah, didn't he go under a tractor trailer truck? And he
it was a pretty bad accident. I mean, he ended up in the hospital.
Yeah, wow, it's something to be taken quite seriously. I mean, maybe not to dread, but to have a healthy respect for, because if somebody goes as far as to challenge that,
right,
they must on some level believe in its potency.
Like I said, but the case that I built, I mean, since the museum was closed, I added a couple other things to the case. I put 3 crucifixes on that case: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And behind Annabelle, behind the felt, inscribed into the wall, is the Lord's Prayer, plus all the other prayers that we performed on that case. And the case is infused, the stain on it is infused with holy water and holy oil. So I did a couple extra things other than what Ed's case was meant to do.
Is that the case that it travels in also?
Yes, case it travels in, and plus there's other cases that I built in that museum. The dinosaur from the Brookfield murder case. There's a skull in the museum.
Really? Oh, I wouldn't pick that up. Huh?
There's a human skull that we got from a certain person.
Oh, this is funny. Rosalie wrote exactly the next question I was going to ask you, because you have a lot of people coming into those conventions. What about people who laugh or mock it at the convention? Are they safe?
They're not touching the glass. They can't come near the case. They can't knock on it, mock it, or anything like that. Plus, we have security there. We have about maybe 2 to 3 guys that are surrounding that case during this event. So just to make sure nobody goes near it, or
more than just like thumbing your nose at it and making.
Right. Yeah, that's not going to do anything.
Well, it's encased in a spiritual bulwark. It should have its own protective power and properties.
Yeah. So we take great precautions, just to make sure the public's protected as well.
And people like to be scared. They like to be a little frightened, as long as it's at a safe place and at a distance.
Right. But like I said, the only way that you could teach people that the devil does exist, that God exists, is to have it in front of you. There's proof. There's a story behind it. All right. We had a couple of guys that are on YouTube come to the museum, and they were young kids, influencers, and I showed them a different side of the paranormal, what they're used to, how they investigate, how to take it seriously, because you don't know what exactly what you're dealing with and what you could invite in, and how you approach things. So I like passing that knowledge on to other people. I also work with the traditional Catholic Church, where exorcisms are performed, and there's a process to it. So I guide them to the church, and once they're guided to the church, the priest takes over, and the client needs to follow the directions of the priest. You have to go to confession, you have to be baptized, you have to have communion, all this before even an exorcism is performed. And I'm dealing with a case right now. Somebody that got into the paranormal field and dabbled into things that he shouldn't have dabbled in, and now is affecting his life. And so we're going through the whole process with the church right now.
Yeah, you're being advised by the church, and all the preparations are being made. Are you taking an active role in this exorcism procedure?
in the past, yes, I did, but a lot of it has affected me. So now, with this last case, I'm letting the church handle it. There's things that I've seen, and
Now,
you know,
you have to get like permission from Rome and all that to do an exorcism.
you need permission from the bishop, Father Rodriguez, to make that happen in the snap of a finger. He can make it happen.
Right.
This is different from your regular Catholic church. This is a traditional Catholic church, so their rules are a little bit more strict and demanding on their procedures.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Just it's good to be able to ask you some of the things that you just read about, hear about, see in movies, you know, that you don't know which part of it is.
And sometimes the priest, you know, you say, you know, you could gather all this evidence and bring it to the church. Yeah, it's fine. But the priest is not going to sit there and look at all this evidence either.
Right.
The priest is going to determine if this person really does need help.
And it's still a controversial thing where, you know, we could have something going on right here and just say, oh, well, there's a church right up Route 44. Let's just go over there. It's a Catholic church. And they might just look at you like you've got three heads.
A lot of them do. A lot of them would, you know, tell you to leave.
Right. You've been watching too much TV. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And would you ever be in a position where you would actually approach a member of clergy and say, in my opinion, this is an authentic case of demonic possession? That's a very direct scenario. But you would be the one in that case, if you felt called to, you would be the one to approach a priest.
Yes.
I think this is legitimate possession.
Yeah, and the same goes for everything that that client has to go through with confession, communion. I have to do the same. If I'm involved in the exorcism, I will have to fast for a week. You know, it's a process, and it wears you down. You know, even the priest, that if I'm not prepared or not ready to be a part of it, he won't even allow me into the church during the process. I need to be 100%.
Yeah, because supposedly you use your own weaknesses against you, and you're
Right.
cleansing yourself of your weaknesses.
It's a ploy of the demonic, attrition, wearing you down, bit by maybe not an outright assault or that you perceive, but taking little pieces out of your, you know, fortitude.
Yeah, and like I said, most people don't see that, and they don't see what we really do. You know, NESPR and helping people. I think, you know, mainstream TV has changed a lot of ways in how people approach the paranormal. We're old school, so, you know, we still do it, you know, how we were taught, you know, from Ed and Lorraine and in the clergy. You know, I'm not going to say I learned everything from Ed and Lorraine. I learned a lot from working with the church, working with different people, seeing how they approach things. And you know, I know right from wrong. And, you know, and I like to pass that knowledge on as well.
Are you a demonologist? Do you embrace that title?
I don't, you know, here's the thing. I don't like titles.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, my, you know, road to fame is not having the title. I think people will remember me from the works I did without a title. I know a lot about demonology. I do have a gift, but I'm not selfish, and I keep my heart 100% open to help people, and I don't let my ego get ahead of myself. And that's my purpose, is really to help people.
I find that times my ego has seemed to get a little out of check. Some circumstance will come along and deflate it, smash it down. It's a check and balance system. I don't know why, but it's.
Yeah, you know, here's the thing. Life's too short.
Yeah.
You know, you make a statement, people will remember you from your actions, from the good that you've done.
Yes.
All right. Now, Yeah, it's great if you're on a show, and you know, I was part of a production on Netflix, and this is more important. Helping people is more important than TV to me. You know,
Yeah.
that's
saying
just
not
okay.
everybody-
You know, it's happened. You know, but
Not
I
everybody.
never put that ahead of what I do, what I really do.
Mhm. Good. You keep really in check with that.
I mean, here's like, I mean, you came to me and said Ken DaCosta is gonna send me a link, and I've known Ken for a very long time. I think back in 2010, I had Ken come and investigate one of my locations that we were on, and actually one night they were there, and they called me up, said, Dan, you know, there's really not that much activity going on here tonight. So I was actually at one of our Annabelle events. Actually, it was a Warrenology back then. And I go to the Opera House, and Ken and his group, they're standing outside. And no, there's not activity going on. So I said, all right, come on, let's walk in. They had all their meters and everything on stage. As soon as I walked in there and I got into the auditorium, all their REM pods started lighting up across the stage. And I believe that was Ken. And he looked at me and says, Dan, those haven't gone off all night until you just walked in. And I said, I didn't know what to tell him. I just, you know, they sense me when I get there, you know. That location was a really active location. It actually made it onto the show Ghost Hunters back in 2012, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah. So you do have a gift. There's something different about you. Well, we're all unique, but there's something.
Well, we're all unique, you know. It's perspective. It's how you carry yourself and what your true intents are, and that shows.
Mm-hmm. You want to read that question?
Well, I just thought it was
Comment,
a
I should-
comment to add
comment,
to
yeah.
what we were saying. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle. It's just about collectively putting it together, demonology studies included. And I always say that when people like to call me a potty pooper because I'll come along and say, you know, if your boiler's squeaking, that's, you know, it's not
I like to
a
say
squeaky ghost.
you're a pragmatist.
Yes, I am. But I think that has a place in the puzzle too, where you don't want to be chasing a squeak in the boiler system. You want to eliminate every possible normal explanation.
Right.
So somebody like me is a piece of the puzzle.
Well, that's why I think you're essential,
Why-
especially when it comes to coffee pots.
Oh,
Well, that's the thing. You need to rule everything out before you can come to a conclusion.
right. Even if
Yeah.
you know, whether you think it's a psychic thing that's going on, or you think it's a you know, some other entity haunting, you know, a place memory, whatever. You can't even begin to entertain those things that you don't understand until you eliminate the things you do understand.
Right. Because I worked in construction, so there's a lot I know about houses,
Yeah.
how houses are
Right.
wired, you know,
Yeah.
bad grounds, what could give you high EMF readings in a house as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to look at before you could say, you know, you could go in a room, you could feel the heaviness.
Yeah.
Well, that could be bad wiring in the room.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, and that's giving you that heaviness, you know, in your frontal lobe. Those are the EMFs that's coming through the old wires.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things that you got to look at.
I read about a case that was in a scientific laboratory, a bunch of people who, you know, oh, we don't believe in that woo-woo and everything going on. One by one, people were starting to see shadows out of the corners of their eye. Like, but they weren't talking to each other because they're like, they're gonna think I'm crazy and we're gonna get fired. But finally, word starts getting back and forth, and they're all seeing the same thing. They're seeing shadows in the corner. So they do a paranormal investigator to come in. And long story short, it ended up being a faulty fan that was causing vibrations in the atmosphere that affect the
vitreous fluid in the eyes.
fluid in your eye, making you see shadows out of the corner of your eye.
Yeah.
So you could have said that there was some kind of an entity shadow. Everybody automatically something's black, it's bad. A shadow is black.
Yep.
I mean,
You got to look at, like I said, you got to look at everything.
Yeah.
Researchers were not delusional; they were actually seeing
Not only the
something.
possible things, but the improbable ones.
Right. Like you got to rule, like I said, get into somebody's past, ask the questions, find out the history of the location. No matter what, there's ghosts all around us. All right. I mean, you got to realize that this planet is very old.
Yes.
It was inhabited by trillions and trillions of people that have passed away.
Yeah.
And left their imprint on that property.
Yes.
So, are they all evil? I say not. But
Just
those
like-
that are
Just
troubled people attract the negative.
Right.
It should be a rule against that, but apparently there isn't. Like people who are mentally handicapped, they can draw those entities in.
Exactly, because they're open. They're more pure than you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely. So you are literal about demons, that they are a race, a creature of their own kind of thing. And I've never heard of a demon that didn't hate the human race. I mean, if there is, just never hear from them.
That what?
If there are these, well, we call them demons. We lack the clinical terminology, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If there are demons that aren't warring against human beings and don't hate human beings, we never hear from them.
That's kind of in their job description, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, yeah. It has a certain connotation. But
Well, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that we don't even know.
Oh.
There's a lot of biblical knowledge that we don't know. Books that never made it into the Bible.
Yes,
Exactly.
the Apocrypha and beyond.
And I believe that there's hidden knowledge there and powerful knowledge that are not meant for us right now. At some point, I believe we're going to be exposed to that knowledge. And it's going to be a really big eye awakening when that happens. But I mean, people look at UFOs and aliens and blah, blah, this and that. And it's all related. Everything that what we're doing is all related somehow.
I can understand why the Book of Enoch, for instance, probably the best known of the Apocrypha, why that was not there was the Gospel of Judas and of Mary, why that was not, the Book of Enoch was not included in the canonic Bible.
Well, it's included in the Ethiopian Bible.
Oh, yes, I have heard that. There are 6 separate sections, so there's 6 books in one of the Book of Enoch, so it's expansive. And you look at it, it doesn't seem to jive with a lot of the rest of the Old Testament, for instance.
No, because because it gets more into the Nephilim.
Yes.
The giants, how they, the fallen angels made it with the human race. What God's creation was the human race, and created the Nephilim, these giants, which ate the flesh of humans. And the whole purpose of the flood was to rid the world of the Nephilim.
I think it was effective in that. Is a person who's done an extensive study of the Nephilim, which is a plural word, Nephil, is Father Ed Broderick. Also, my brother, demonologist Keith Johnson, done a lot of study on the Nephilim. There's only so much you can know, but you can find out what's been recorded. We have actually a question from Sarah Yusuf. Do you believe that there is an interdimensional layer between the physical world and the world of the spiritual? What are the points of connection?
Well, I think there are different dimensions out there. It's how you pierce through the veils, portals. How do you open portals? How portals are opened? It could be sound. Right now, as I'm sitting here at this desk right now, there's another dimension. And however I could disturb the environment, they could have a glimpse of me sitting here. Or I could have a glimpse of them in their dimension. It's how, it's being disturbed. So I believe, we live in a parallel universe, dimensions. And it's how you could break that veil, because right now they're probably trying to investigate me. You know.
Really interesting premise.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, well, yeah, there has to be something to
And you
it.
see that same sample in so many different areas that, people talk about, explore. I mean, you talk about, the law of attraction and, making your life better. There's going to be, there's all these different scenarios, all these different outcomes that are all taking place at the same time, different dimensions. And if you can imagine the bad one, you can just as easily imagine the good one and make your life follow that path.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it's a whole different area, but it's the same pattern.
Well, I think, like I said, there's a lot of information that is hidden from us, knowledge, for certain reasons, and we're not ready for it. And I think that has a lot to do with the different dimensions.
Right.
Can these different dimensions be breached, disrupted incidentally, like somebody didn't mean to utter that word, or a certain sound frequency pervades the ether?
Correctly. That's how it happens.
And entities slip through.
That's how it happens. I mean,
wonder who's controlling that information if it's being withheld from us at a certain time.
yeah. I mean, there's different ways you can look at it.
Who knows?
You have to be open-minded.
Right.
So, Dan, you're not categorized as a psychic, to be sure, and you're not. Well, you wouldn't choose to call you or be called a demonologist.
No.
How about Illuminati? Are you one of them?
Hell no.
Because you got some really nice cars, and I'm wondering how you get them.
Listen, I get them cheap. I fix them up myself.
That's right. You're able to fix
them. And if you really want something, you go out and get it. And make it yours. There's no saying that there's nothing that you can't achieve. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. Just need to make it happen. If you will it, it will happen.
Realistic assessment and all. Yes. So what else you got? Questions?
Well,
anything you want to say about, you can get back into your association with the Warrens. Of course, this show has been about you, really.
That's the point.
And that's a good thing.
Well,
that's why we're here. Not talking about us. Everybody knows us.
Well, we got the Paracon coming up in October.
Yeah, that's what I want to get at, what you're doing.
Yeah, October 27th at Mohegan Sun Casino. That's going to be our VIP, the night of the VIP party. And October 28th is the actual event. It's actually called the Warren Seekers Supernatural Phantasmacon.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why we called it Phantasmacon is going to be a mix of the paranormal, horror celebrities, and celebrities from like Ancient Aliens. We got Nick Pope that's going to be on there from Ancient Aliens.
In fact, I saw him in your background there, I think.
Yeah, I watch Ancient Aliens all the time. You think I sit here and watch paranormal shows, but most of the shows I watch are about aliens and UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah, I watch the Gaia channel. I subscribe to that, and there's just a whole host of shows about all kinds of wild stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had actually, while I was looking for this picture, I uploaded one from the prior year's Paracon.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
And there's also the one from 2021. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Why I had Keith and Carl be a part of this, because they were involved with the Warrens years back. I mean, I know there were disagreements or how things were, handled. But I like to see all of us come together and work together and be as one. I have a lot of respect for Keith and Carl. I wasn't there.
I respect Keith Johnson too.
I wasn't there, but the way I want to run things and NESPR is to work with others, and I have respect what they do, and they and for them to reach out to me, I respect that. And who am I? But I had the pleasure of working with both of them, and I would like to continue that. I like to gain knowledge.
So actually, I have a picture, you guys. Oh, I'm in that too. Oh, that's a terrible picture. But
Not as bad as mine.
At the
No,
house.
Yeah, at the house. The
it was a
house
really
in
hot
Harrison.
night, if I remember right. I think it was really warm that night.
Hot time in the old
Yeah,
town.
we're going back there. So next, what's it, Monday? We're going back there.
Monday. Yep, right after the
Yeah.
weekend. I'm gonna meet you there. I'd be
Yep.
really disappointed if you're not there that evening.
No, we're gonna go have lunch before we go there.
Yeah, I'd like to. We'll see if we can have company there too. You're welcome to come, of course.
Go out for lunch.
Yeah. Never mind that yoga class at night. You don't need to do that. She's.
Oh, you're doing the yoga class that night? You're not coming?
Yeah.
Oh.
I haven't decided yet.
All right.
So I
I'll
told
have to
Dan I
say.
generally do yoga on Monday nights, but I you're not essential.
Well, thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I haven't been up there in
The
so
yoga,
long.
anyway.
It used to be kind of a hangout.
Here's a friend of mine, David Fritz. If you read the Bible, both Old and New Testaments, the Book of Enoch is all through. Interesting point that the Book of Enoch pervades the topics and subjects that are in the Book of Enoch.
There are some topics and subjects in there. I mean, they talk about the giants in there, and they talk about the Nephilim, but they don't get into the details of what the Book of Enoch really talks about. So you do have some hints of that in there.
It's fascinating. What it talks about, like your interest in extraterrestrial, if you will, visitations. You read the books of Enoch, and it seems like that's what they're talking about. We can't know. It's very mysterious, very nebulous.
Well, I've seen a UFO myself. I mean, I think my brother left to the Navy back in '81, and that was my first experience seeing a UFO. It was about maybe like 100 yards circular with lights all around it, and it was moving slowly towards New Haven. Years later, come to find out that multiple people witnessed this happen all the way up and down the East Coast.
Wow.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who have claimed, in my family too. Just my sister has a memory of seeing one, she and her girlfriend were walking down the street and they were like, what's this? And then by the time they got home, they doubted they had seen it. It was so incredible. And
and the weird thing about it is I started having dreams after that, with like weird dreams of like different styles of spaceships, and they were invading us, kind of weird kind of thing, coming out of the clouds. It was just weird. You could look at these spacecrafts, and it's like nothing that you ever seen before, like on TV or anything. So did that have something to do with my dreams by seeing that? I don't know.
Right. And they could all look different because, that's why some critics claim that, everything looks different. This guy said he saw a round one. This guy said he saw a triangle. This guy said he saw a tic-tac shape. Look at cars and trucks and, everything we have for transportation. They all look different.
Well,
why can't UFOs
well, you got to understand ancient knowledge. I mean, for instance, we have different continents, all these different continents on this planet. I mean, if it was ancient and they were on this planet, depends on where they came from and how that spaceship was built. I don't know.
If somebody could be transported back in time, and you go,
remember what I said with the different dimensions and how they can move from the different dimensions as well.
Perhaps they are time travelers. I mean, if one of us could go back to where it's now, the islands that would be known as Mesopotamia and Salmatia and Crete.
Yeah,
you could go back.
It all depends how you could bend time.
Yeah,
and shorten the distance, right? So if you shorten that, right, this is the galaxy. But if you shorten time and dimensions, you could bring it closer.
Suddenly, the distance is closed. And if somebody could get back there, I wonder if you looked up in the sky, what you might see. Say, oh, this is what we call UFOs now. This is, spaceships. That's what we think of them now. But I think those were in the skies back then.
Yeah, but then again, is that all connected to, angels, the biblical, the Bible? Are these, we call them aliens, but are they angels?
Right.
We don't know.
Just have the wrong perspective on it.
Right.
Just don't know.
And Sarah Yosef says, might have to take advantage of the time slip at the Harrisville house. Yeah, sometimes strange things do happen in that house. Distortion.
Oh, did she just say time slip?
She says time slip. Yeah.
I was leaving there one night. I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it usually takes about an hour and a half to get to Connecticut. Well, no, I'm sorry, about an hour. No, not even an hour.
Depending on where you're
No,
going.
no, depending on where I'm going. But anyways, it was like 10 minutes and I was in Connecticut.
Oh my.
And
Time
I
slip.
looked at my friends like, how did that happen? We weren't even on the highway. We were taking back roads. And we ended up in Connecticut. Like it was like 10 minutes. It was weird.
That shouldn't be.
Too
If
bad
anything,
the
should
plane on that happened.
Yeah.
You save so much gas. You take the
I
good
know,
one.
but I just like we couldn't explain that. It was just kind of
Wow.
weird.
Yeah.
So I'm 20 minutes away, give or take, depending on traffic from the Harrisville house, and you were considerably further. You made it in less time.
Yeah, well, no, from my house to get there is an hour and a half.
Yeah. About that. Wow.
But I'm saying to get to the Connecticut border, but it was just weird.
Yeah.
Is that scary? I mean, you're worried about getting stuck in another dimension, and
Oh, dude, you ever drive on the back roads there at night over from Harrisville? It's so dark. I mean,
it's a spooky place. Yes. Well, we remember Dan Rivera, and sometimes on some nights when the wind is blowing, you hear his voice calling, "I'm here, I'm here," but we don't see him. Yeah. Well, that's not really going to happen. My experience, I'll go through it quickly, with the mirror, I did the distortion in the mirror. That mirror was there when the parents had residency of the house, ownership of that house in Harrisville, around Top Road. And I was there for the closing with Jen and Corey, and Elise came with me. And I hadn't been in there some years. I mean, it hadn't been 46 years, but it had been a few years since I'd been in there. And I said, that mirror there, that rectangular mirror, that's what I remember. The parents had that, and then Norma Sutcliffe had that mirror up in the corner. So I went and looked in the mirror, and I was alone in the room, but it was now the parlor room was the dining room. I saw myself as I looked when I was 18 years of age.
Yeah.
How old I was when I first went to the house. And I'm looking, I started to say, Elise, Corey, no, when they get in here, they're not going to see anything. I can't chance it. What I did was the next best thing. I looked at that for about 4 minutes, just looked at my reflection, which I don't normally do, even when I'm shaving. But I looked at my reflection, and it was me, shoulder length, strawberry blonde hair. I had long sideburns. I looked younger. I just looked, I looked that age, but my reflection was moving with me. I had my modern red polo shirt on, but I'm like moving and like, no, that's me. This is not a trick of the light. It's sunny outside. This is not doing that. This is real. I don't want to remember this is some kind of hallucination. I am seeing this. I just kept saying that to myself and analyzing it. You know what a shock it was when I went to their bathroom where they have the long mirror, and I said, oh boy, things have changed dramatically. Yeah.
There you go.
I saw that. Now, and I wasn't anticipating anything like that. I've never heard of it. Except
that property of that location, I mean,
not a mirror.
What I was really fascinated with are the stones, the way they're placed on that property.
Yeah.
You have circular patterns on that property, and I think that goes back to Native Americans.
Yeah.
There's
peoples there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting part. Like I said, it's the history of the property.
I think they knew those indigenous peoples. I think they knew how to create a battery.
Well, not only that, but I mean, are the ley lines that cross through there as well.
To tap into those power sources, those ley lines.
Right.
They set up their own conduits. They had some knowledge we don't have.
Right.
No.
And you're sitting on possibilities with that portal there as well, which I sense one there from the center of the house up.
Yeah. If you or I, when we go there Monday night, if you or I vanish, that's going to be gangbusters, because people are going to be watching this episode. Look, they were talking about it just then. It's like they knew.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, we got to teach these youngsters how to do it. So
yeah.
I'll tell you, sitting there staring in the mirror like it's the mirror of Erised from Harry Potter doesn't work, because I didn't look any younger.
You reference that sometimes.
I didn't look any younger. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to just happen when it happens, I guess.
Dan, how would you it's not your job to try and convince people, because sometimes you can't, and it really doesn't matter. How would you respond to somebody who says there's nothing to it? It's all just what we see.
I
Everything
can't.
is just an order to the world, and don't mess with these pretend spirits and these ghosts and demons. It's just nothing to it.
You know
Our
what? I
people
mean,
get
there's a lot of people that are affected by this, and there's got to be somebody out there that will listen to them and hear them out, even if it's not paranormal, just to listen to somebody. I mean, there's a lot of people that just want to be heard, and I'll give them that opportunity to be heard. For people that don't believe in this, I'm not going to waste my energy on them. It's not going to affect me how I'm going to approach things. And I know what my purpose is. I know what I need to do. And I focus on those that really need help. And the ones that don't believe, at some point in their life, they will believe, in something. And I'll leave it up to them.
Excuse me. Yeah. Well, we've extended our time slightly, and I don't care. You are a fascinating guest. You are a valiant soul, and I think you are a major contribution to these fields.
Well, like I said, thank you for that, and the same goes for both of you. And Ken that's broadcasting this as well. I mean, he's put a lot of time into it, and has a lot of knowledge as well. So I have a lot of respect for those that came before me, and I just want to continue doing what I'm meant to do.
Right, you do. You're following your calling, like sociologist Joseph P. Campbell said, "Follow your bliss." His statement is long, but it's basically follow your bliss. Follow where you find your cause, find what you love, and go for it. Live it. Produce that. And Ken DeCosta, they say nobody is indispensable. Really, it's true. We lose presidents, we lose, family. Ken DeCosta is indispensable, though. He's the exception. He's that one exception that I know.
Remembers to press all the buttons, the right buttons.
Yeah,
Like
he'll push buttons all right. He does
No,
sometimes.
that's not
Oh, I mean, yeah. No, he's the technician behind the scenes. Yeah. I just leaned on the keyboard. I thought your image froze for a second. I thought I had done it.
I was so glad that you said yes to coming on the show, because he told me to talk to you last week, and I was like, ask him to be on the show. I want to talk to him too.
Anytime,
I would have gotten around to it, but she's the reason you're here tonight. I make no bones about that. Elise is the brains of our organization here, so she's an organizer.
You guys are great. You guys are doing good. I've been to the property over there, Justin House. That's what I want to say.
Which one's that?
What's the property you're at right now?
We're at the Elijah Angel House.
Oh, yes.
Elijah Angel.
Yeah, Johnson Historical Society HQ, Elijah Angel House.
Yeah, it's got a couple of rumors of a ghost, but we haven't been able to prove anything, and we have a tenant who lives over there. So
there you go.
Other people have people not knowing each other in different places. Like one at a library talk, one came to an open house, one had lived there. All described the same man in a top hat.
And their corroboration was, pure. They didn't know each other's stories, and they all described, oh yeah, did you know this place is haunted?
Is that where I filmed at when I did the Travel Channel show for the recreation of the Conjuring House?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was responsible for that because she was, Ken was looking around for. He said the network was looking for a place where they could film,
most
terrifying.
Farmhouse that kind of looked like the other farmhouse, and I was like,
right. It was the kitchen scene.
Yeah, like right on our property, like 200 feet from away. And so Elise went in there with a camcorder and showed what it was, and that was so she was a big part of that episode. That's the one, Elijah Angel House.
Okay.
That was a fun.
Circa 1825. Yeah. But wow.
Yep, that was a fun episode.
What do we do when we don't want to let him go?
We have to let him go.
Come on now.
You remember, I'm going to see you on Monday anyway, so.
There you go. Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you to everybody who wrote in questions. And if I didn't get to your question, I apologize.
Yes.
And you can always
Denise,
find
Sarah, all of you.
Dan online, NESPR, PhantasmaCon coming up in October. I was trying to remember.
Get your tickets at nespr.ticketbud.com.
Very good. And it's easy to find. If you can't remember that, Google it. It did pop up while I was looking for, things to post on here. photos. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah. And Dan will always have you back. We have a few people we need to have back, but
All right.
All right.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.